We are Artworkium, and you are plugged into inventive legacies, patents that shaped our lives. This is the deep dive. Here, we grab those amazing ideas captured in patent prints and really unpack them. We try to figure out how one single innovation actually changed things for us, how we live or play or work.
And look, if you're one of our fantastic customers who's picked up some of our digital prints, think of this series as, well, a resource just for you. It's our way of saying thanks, a little extra exploration into the minds behind the inventions.
Absolutely. So today, we're shifting gears a bit. We're moving away from, say, heavy industry and picking up something, well, much more refined, a game piece. We're diving deep into something surprisingly complex, the quest for the perfect heavy chess piece.
We are indeed. We're looking at US Patent 11,757B2. The title is pretty straightforward, maybe a bit dry. Method of weighting chess pieces.
But don't let that fool you. If you appreciate that solid, satisfying feel of a high-end chess set, that definite clunk when you place a piece, then you'll really want to see the print for this one.
Yeah, the diagrams are quite something.
It's in our Toys and Games section on the store, and we've put a direct link right in the description so you can pull up the drawings and, follow along visually while you listen. Okay, let's get into the genius behind that weight. All right, let's start with the basics, the vital stats on this invention.
Okay, so the patent ID is US 11,757B2. And it's pretty recent, granted May 11th, 2021.
Oh, very recent.
Yeah. The inventor is Frank A. Camaratta, Jr. from Huntsville, Alabama. And the patent is assigned to the House of Staunton, Inc.
Ah, Camaratta. That's a great inventor to focus on. This isn't just some hobbyist designer, right? He's like the guy for high-end chess sets.
That's it, precisely. He's internationally known, a really serious collector himself, and he actually created something called the Camaratta Codex.
Codex, what's that?
It's basically, think of it like the ultimate guide, almost a forensic manual for identifying real, valuable, historic Staunton chess sets. So when he designs something, it's not just a piece for playing. It's crafted like, well, a museum piece.
Which leads us right into the problems he was trying to solve. I mean, weighting chess pieces isn't a new idea. It goes way back, right, to the Staunton pattern in 1849.
Yeah, exactly. That pattern standardized the look, made the bases wider for stability, and then they started weighting them, usually with a chunk of lead, just to keep them from tipping over so easily.
Right, that satisfying heft.
That's what gives those expensive sets their presence. But almost from the start, that lead weight introduced this huge, long-standing engineering flaw into these otherwise perfect, often very expensive wooden pieces.
You mean the cracking, the dreaded crack. Why does putting weight inside make the wood split? Seems counterintuitive.
Well, it boils down to basic material physics. These high-end sets, they're often made from woods like ebony or boxwood. And wood, being organic, it breathes, right? It absorbs moisture, it loses moisture, depending on the humidity, the climate.
Okay, makes sense.
And when wood loses moisture, it shrinks.
But the lead slug jammed in the bottom, that doesn't shrink.
Not a bit. So you've got this shrinking container, the wood trying to tighten around something solid and unyielding the lead slug. The wood is literally forced to stretch around that fixed weight inside.
Okay, I think I see.
And that creates immense pressure pushing outwards. Engineers call it hoop strains.
Hoop strains. Is that kind of like how if you freeze water in a glass bottle, the ice expands and cracks the glass because the glass can't stretch?
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
It's a conflict between materials. And with strong woods that are also not sensitive, like ebony, meaning small flaws can easily grow, these constant hoop strains take tiny microscopic imperfections in the wood.
Like little fissures.
Exactly. And they force them to grow, to propagate, until you get these visible, sometimes catastrophic cracks, usually starting right there at the base where the weight is.
And the old ways of manufacturing didn't help, did they? I read they used to do things like pour molten lead in.
Oh yeah, that was terrible. It scorches the wood, makes it brittle right where the stress is highest. It basically pre-damaged the piece, making cracks almost inevitable later on.
So even using precast metal slugs, just dropping a solid piece in, that wasn't much better.
Marginally. It avoided the scorching, but it didn't solve the fundamental problem. The rigid slug versus the shrinking wood. That solid metal was always going to be a stress point. So collectors basically had a choice. A high-end set that felt disappointingly light, or one that was beautiful but probably doomed to crack eventually.
Okay, so Camaratta is tackling this like 150-year-old materials science problem. But then technology throws another wrench in the works. The digital headache, as the outline called it.
Right, exactly. Fast forward to today's big chess tournaments. They all use these sophisticated sensory boards. You've probably seen them, the DGT boards.
Yeah, they track the moves automatically for broadcasts and stuff.
That's it. And for that to work, each piece needs its own little sensor inside, usually an induction coil that talks to the board.
So why couldn't they just use a different metal instead of lead, like steel or brass? Does lead have some unique property that messes things up?
It's not just lead. Any solid conductive metal used for weighting is the problem here. When you place a piece with a solid metal slug over the receiving coils in the board, well, that metal acts like a conductor. It generates something called eddy currents.
Eddy currents. Okay, that sounds like something you'd find in water, not a chess piece. What does that mean?
Think of it like a magnetic interference. Tiny swirling electromagnetic fields get induced in the metal weight itself, and these fields just completely disrupt the signal between the piece's sensor and the board.
So the lead or steel or whatever, it's basically shouting static over the piece's signal.
Pretty much. The board can't tell which piece is which, or sometimes even if a piece is there at all. The communication is scrambled.
Which means if you wanted your fancy pieces to work on a DGT board, you couldn't weight them properly with metal.
Historically, no. DGT-compatible pieces were known for being disappointingly light because they had to ditch the conductive metal weight.
Sacrificing feel for function.
Totally. We're talking like the DGT Classic Kings.
Yeah.
They maybe weighed about 1.6 ounces.
Max. Wow, that's feather-light compared to a traditional weighted set.
Absolutely. If you're used to that satisfying heft, 1.6 ounces feels, well, almost like plastic. The tactile quality players love was just gone.
Okay, so Camaratta's facing this triple challenge. Stop the cracking, allow digital sensing, and, as we'll get to, make sure pieces have uniform weight. These seem almost contradictory. How did he pull it off? It wasn't just finding a new metal, was it?
The genius wasn't just what material, but the form of the material. The solution actually starts with the piece design itself. His method involves creating two totally separate cavities inside the piece.
Two holes.
Right. One, carefully placed so it doesn't interfere, holds the electronic sensor, the induction coil. And then there's a different, usually larger cavity, just for the weighting material.
Okay, separation makes sense. So what's the magic material in that main weighting cavity?
This is the clever part. Powdered metal, specifically high-density tungsten powder.
Powder, like metal dust. How does turning the weight into essentially fancy sand solve the cracking issue that a solid slug couldn't?
It goes right back to those Hooke strains. Because the tungsten is a powder, even when compressed, it's not one single rigid object. It's millions of tiny particles.
Ah, so it has some give.
Exactly. When the wood inevitably shrinks with changes in humidity, the powder can shift, compress slightly, and accommodate that movement. It eliminates those hard, rigid stress points where the cracks start, the pressure gets distributed, absorbed. Basically, the cracking problem just disappears.
That is really clever. Okay, but tungsten is still metal, right? Very dense metal. Why doesn't powdered tungsten create the same eddy current interference as a solid slug of lead or even solid tungsten?
Because electrical conductivity, which allows those eddy currents to form effectively, relies on a continuous path. When your weighting material is millions of tiny separate granules, well, the electrical pathway needed to form those large disruptive electromagnetic fields is broken up.
Okay, let me see if I get this. A solid chunk of metal is like one big highway for interference, but the powder is like millions of tiny cul-de-sacs. The current can't build up momentum.
You've basically nailed it. The connectivity is massively reduced. Those large disruptive fields just can't form properly. The overall eddy currents drop towards zero as the particle size gets smaller. And that allows the piece's sensor to communicate clearly with the board.
That's genuinely brilliant. And tungsten was the choice because it's super dense.
It's ideal. First, it's safe, non-toxic. Second, its density is nearly twice that of lead.
Twice. Wow.
Yeah, so you can get the necessary weight into a smaller volume, which helps with design. And it avoids needing ridiculously expensive or, frankly, impractical metals like platinum or osmium. Nobody wants uranium-weighted chess pieces going through customs. Tungsten hits the sweet spot. Dense, safe, practical.
Okay, so powdered tungsten solves cracking, solves digital interference, one elegant material switch. But you mentioned a third problem, weight non-uniformity. What's that about?
Right. So even if you manage to put the exact same amount of weight in every white piece and every black piece, you'd still have an issue. Traditionally, black pieces are often made from ebony,
which is a really dense wood.
very dense, and white pieces are often boxwood, which is significantly less dense. So if you put, say, 30 grams of lead in an ebony piece and 30 grams in a boxwood piece, the final ebony piece will still weigh more overall because the wood itself is heavier.
Ah, okay. And serious players notice that difference.
Purists definitely do. They want that feeling of complete tactile equality between the black and white armies.
So how on earth do you fix the wood's natural density difference without, changing the wood?
This is where the solution gets really refined. You subtly adjust the density of the powdered tungsten fill itself.
How?
By using tungsten powder with a different average particle size for the white pieces compared to the black pieces.
Wait, hang on. They actually use different size grains of tungsten dust depending on the color of the piece. That sounds, is that really necessary, or is that just like showing off, kind of overkill?
Oh, it's absolutely necessary if you're aiming for that top-tier, perfectly balanced feel. The difference is subtle, but it's precise. The less dense white pieces, the boxwood ones, they get tungsten powder with a smaller average particle size, maybe around 18 microns.
Okay, smaller particles.
Smaller particles can pack together more tightly when compressed, so the same volume holds slightly more mass, making the fill itself denser.
Right, okay. And the black pieces, the naturally heavier ebony.
They get tungsten powder with a larger average particle size, let's say 50 microns. Larger particles don't pack quite as efficiently. There are slightly bigger gaps between them, so the fill is marginally less dense.
So that slight difference in the powder's packing density compensates for the wood's natural density difference?
Precisely. It's microengineering to ensure the total weight of a black pawn feels virtually identical to a white pawn, black knight to a white knight, and so on.
That level of detail is just incredible. You've got structural integrity, digital function, and perfectly matched weight across the set.
So what's the real-world result? How heavy are these DGT pieces now? Well, remember those DGT kings that used to feel like air at 1.6 ounces? Using this method, the DGT-enabled kings from House of Staunton now weigh in at a really substantial 3.6 to 3.7 ounces.
That's a huge difference, more than double.
It's night and day. Players get that hefty, satisfying, professional feel they expect from a luxury set, but now combined with rock-solid structural integrity and the seamless digital tracking needed for top-level modern tournaments. It's just a masterclass in combining material science with design needs.
Amazing. A problem that people just lived with for over a century, finally solved not by finding some magic solid material, but by essentially turning the old solution into dust.
Very clever.
Yeah. Okay, we've covered some fascinating ground here, from wood shrinking and hoop strains to eddy currents messing with sensors and even fine-tuning powder density with particle size. But we're curious, what stood out most to you listening in? What part of this was the most interesting or maybe surprising thing you learned today?
Yeah, what caught your attention? Was it maybe realizing that a cracked chess piece isn't just bad luck, but actual mechanical physics, the wood stretching itself apart? Or perhaps learning how basic lead weighting could act like a sort of magnetic brake, creating eddy currents that jam up sensitive electronics?
Or maybe it was just that final touch, the sheer ingenuity of using slightly different sized tungsten grains for black and white pieces, that meticulous effort to equalize the weight by adjusting the powder itself.
Let us know. Head over to our social media channels, jump into the discussion. We really enjoy reading your comments and answering any questions you might have about these inventive legacies.
And hey, while you're there, if you're enjoying these deep dives, please consider subscribing and maybe leaving us a review. It genuinely helps us continue to unpack the genius behind patents like this one.
So to quickly wrap it up, Frank Camaratta's 2021 patent is just elegant. It tackled 3 distinct, long-standing challenges all at once. By moving away from solid metal slugs to this adaptable, specifically engineered powdered tungsten, he made it possible for chess pieces to finally be heavy, durable, digitally smart, and perfectly balanced.
It really is the ultimate blend of art, engineering, and the love of the game. I think what this patent truly highlights is that even in the most familiar objects, like a chess king, there can be these hidden, unsolved problems just waiting for someone to look at them in a completely new way. Thank you, truly, for spending your time with us and for your loyalty to Artworkium.
We really hope you enjoyed this exploration into the surprisingly complex world of weighting a chess piece. We'll catch you on the next deep dive, where we'll dissect another iconic patent that reshaped something in our world.
Goodbye for now.